evening, everybody. This is Tina, and I'm here with Pat. Thank you, as always, for listening to what I have to say. Today, I actually have it kind of written down because there's a lot of information that I want to give to you. As you know, we are talking about boundaries today. The famous saying by Robert Frost that good fences make good neighbors. Well, boundaries are the fences between neighbors, and certainly boundaries are what really helps coaches to do the job they need to do, and helps students to understand what they need. In a nutshell, boundaries define relationships from both sides. They operate from two directions. How we treat others is a boundary, and what treatment we accept from others is a boundary. How available and when we are available to others is a boundary, and how much we expect others to be available and what we expect from them is a boundary. What role we play in other people's lives and what role others play in our lives are a boundary. What others can and cannot expect from us, and what we can and do expect from them. Those are all boundaries. Personal boundaries are guidelines, rules, limits that a person creates to identify for themselves what they consider safe, reasonable, and permissible ways for other people to behave around them, and how they will respond when somebody steps outside of those limits or boundaries or lines that they have created. Boundaries are built out of a mix of beliefs, opinions, attitudes, past experiences, and social learning. Again, operating in two ways: what you expect and how you act, and what you expect from others and how they should act. A person with healthy boundaries takes responsibility for his or her own actions and emotions, while they don't take responsibility for the actions and emotions of others. So that's, sets the stage. Boundaries in general, personal boundaries, work boundaries, romantic boundaries, parent-children boundaries, and here in our special case, coaching boundaries. So one of the main reasons that we wanted to talk about this is because in the coaching relationship that you have with your students, it really is up to you as a coach to determine and maintain safe and healthy boundaries, because young people and the foster youth with whom you are working in particular may have unhealthy boundaries. Children model the world around them, and foster youth, they may have parented their own parents. They may have had no parenting role model at all. They may have moved from home to home, to institution, to independent living program, and each place in which they lived had its own expectations, and so they never were able to formulate one stable way of looking at the world and reacting with people. The student that you coach may have extremely strict boundaries. What's mine is mine, and no ifs, ands, or buts. I have no interest in you or what you have to say, because my world is me. This could in many cases be a defense mechanism, and so safe behavior on the part of the coach and on the part of anybody, as we're talking about boundaries, is to respect those boundaries. The student you coach may, on the other hand, have weak boundaries, having learned to survive by being the person they were expected to be in each situation, and thereby not developing their own personality. Or they may always have been told what to do and never have been given responsibilities for their own actions. Or they may be very needy, incredibly needy. They crave love and attention, and they do whatever they think that that will best get them those things. They may have strong boundaries in one area, keep your hands off my money, for example, and weak in another. And as a side note here, one really interesting defense mechanism that I have noticed over the years, and Pat, you may interject, is that many foster youth keep the different people and the different institutions and the different organizations in their lives very separate. You may think that you are the only person in this young person's life who is helping them on whatever level it is, only to find later on that they have another coach or a foster mother who is very, supportive of them. And when you find out about it, you find out that the reason is that they believed strongly and firmly in their heart of hearts that if they told you there was somebody else who supported them, then you would think, well, she has all the support that she needs. I'm just going to back off. I don't need to be a part of this young person's life anymore. And a very personal example to me is a young person that I have coached and continue to coach. I have coached for 12 years now. I have worked with this young person. And honest truth, it was about 3 years before I knew. All this person ever said to me was that the bad things about their foster parents. They didn't do this. They expected this. His foster siblings were cruel to him. And it took 3 years before I came to realize that in their own way, his foster parents were supporting him as much in their way as I was supporting him in my way. And he said straight out in the end, I never dared tell you, and I never dared tell them, because I was so afraid that you would think I didn't need you, and I really need you. So that is a very interesting, boundary, lack of boundary, whatever you want to call it. So I will stop here for a minute because I really am kind of reading this stuff a little bit, and it also sounds always, as I tell you guys at every call, that I feel like I'm just talking into whatever. So does anybody have any questions about this particular boundary that we're talking about, or comments that you have on why this...
The whole thing again? I'm just kidding.
I can read it, or I can send you the Excel spreadsheet.
I'm just kidding.
But it's okay then for me to go on? Okay.
Well, for me it is, but I'm only 1/10 of what's here, right?
Yeah, but 1/10 is 100% when you're the only one who says anything.
That's the story of my life.
So from the understanding that the young people that we work with have, shall we say, ill-defined boundaries, it becomes the role of the coach to set the boundaries. Because if you don't set the boundaries, you may find yourself in an untenable situation, as has happened. These things happen sometimes, and that's why we felt as the academic success team that we really needed to bring this up today. So as a coach, you can address all of the different issues of boundaries with the student with the understanding that, number one, you are providing the kind of compassionate, reasonable, comforting maybe, advice that an older person will offer to a younger person. And you're talking from your own experience with empathy and concern. Number two, you can address all of these issues if you recognize, you know what, I am a terrible, horrible person, and I apologize to all of you. And you're just going to have to take a second. Pat, you say something. I have my Excel spreadsheet in the wrong order, and I thought, this doesn't make sense what I'm reading.
But Tina really is not a terrible, horrible person. She always says this if she makes a tiny little
You're
error.
a horrible, terrible person.
Well, I'm reading from the last page of the spreadsheet, and I thought, no, this isn't right. I thought, wait a minute. So, I'm going to have to look at my spreadsheet.
Well, the
Pat.
sad part is that I proofread it before we went on air here. So I looked at it too, so I must be just as terrible.
Well, if you only proofread it once, I can tell you that my student and I would wag our finger at you because we worked on a paper where we did 7 iterations of it before it was finally
This isn't right.
good enough to turn in.
Okay, there we go. So,
Proofread at least 3 times. At least.
has anybody had any issues with boundaries at all?
I need my computer.
Or any comments about the boundaries?
I have one question.
Sure.
This is Peggy from Virginia. I did address this with Pat, I think it was, just during the holiday break. One of my students told me she didn't have the money to get the official transcript from her school.
Correct.
And
We're going to talk about
I
that.
encouraged her to ask her aunt with whom she spent the holiday break. She came back and said her aunt couldn't give her, I think it was $25.
Okay.
And I did refer it back to you all. And I think it was Pat that responded to me and said to refer her to the on-campus or local, whatever her other contact is.
Her
there.
ETV coordinator, Peggy.
I'm sorry?
I think I asked you to refer her back to her ETV coordinator.
That's it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember the terminology. And she told me that she came back tonight. I did do that. And I said I had discussed it with you. And she came back to me and said she wasn't comfortable doing that because she didn't want that person to be all up in her business. At that point, I did send her the money for the transcript.
Okay.
With the understanding that that was the only time I would be able to do that. It made me a little bit uncomfortable because I felt like she was playing one against the other a little bit. And I don't know about this other contact person. I didn't understand that person's role vis-a-vis the student.
Peggy, this is Tina again, because now as anybody who watches this video will see all the frantic rushing back and forth, I have my computer open. I really apologize, guys. This was very unprofessional. I'm really sorry. But, Peggy, that is one of the things a little farther down we are going to address because it is a boundary that your student absolutely crossed, that you as a coach can put back up by citing policy. And I will explain it more later on, but basically it is the policy of this program that coaches are forbidden to send money to students. And there are recourses, as Pat had told you before, and that is a boundary. Well, for one thing, a boundary is what you are uncomfortable with. You know, if you are uncomfortable with it, don't do it. But so if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to my prepared speech, and we will get to that part, and you will have a little more background, and I'll explain it a little bit better.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm really sorry that I messed this up. But anyway, so we were talking about the, you know, that the one thing that the students do is differentiate, and because they believe that you will stop caring about them if they have other people who care in their lives. And it's because, as one of our colleagues, who many of you might know, Laura Adkins, said that, you know, as children they were on a starvation diet of affection and support. So now, with all of this said about the students and their uncertain boundaries, the coach, you guys may also be uncertain about what the appropriate boundaries are in the coaching setting. You may wonder, how available do I need to be? What questions can I ask or shouldn't I ask, or do I have to ask of my student? How much advice, guidance should I give or shouldn't I give? What if my student is needy beyond what I am, capable or willing to give back? What if my student wants to talk about things I'm not comfortable with? Again, a really big one. What if my student makes it really clear they want money? So before moving forward to talk about that, I want to make it really clear to you guys that as a coach, you always have the right to say no to anything you deem inappropriate or uncomfortable. You always have the right to say no, and you can always put the monkey on our back. You can always say, it is foster care to success policy that I cannot or I must not, whatever it is, or that I have to, whatever it is. You can always put it back on us, because if they get mad at us, that's fine. We deal with that every day.
Every day.
Don't
we do.
we, Pat?
Yes.
So that said, the Academic Success Program has set certain boundaries, which you as coaches can cite. The first one, Peggy, is the coach cannot give or lend money to the student. It's in the coach handbook. I believe it's in the webinars. So with that said, that as policy, the coach cannot give or lend money to the student, we, on our side, because the boundary between us is more flexible, you are very welcome as coaches, if you wish, to send small gifts to your student. If you know their birthday is coming up, if they had a special event in their life, small gifts like a $10 or a $25 Barnes & Noble card or Target card or a movie gift certificate, a little care package, and speaking of care packages, one of the coaches, Debbie, we have just put on our coaching website a bunch of really cool gifts that you can make, little small things like a pair of socks and matching toenail polish. It's all on our website. It's the same website where you go to fill in your report. So, small gifts, they are absolutely fine. But nothing changes a relationship faster than money or the expectation of money, and you may very well know that just from family relations. If a family member is always asking for money, it's extremely uncomfortable. So if you have concerns about the financial well-being of your student, like I don't have the $25 for a transcript, or I need the money to get home, or whatever it is, contact ASP. Tell your student, I'm very sorry you are having these financial issues. I will put it to the Foster Care to Success team. You should contact your coordinator or your scholarship team staff member. A big part of our work, and Pat, you might want to address this really quickly, a big part of our work with every single student we work with is budgeting and financial management. We've talked to all of them about it. They have no reason to be embarrassed with us. Many of them, they're not. But if the issue is that they don't have enough money for something, whether it is fixing their car or getting a transcript or they have an overdue bill from school, those issues are our issues. We've very, very, very much appreciated that several of our coaches are so generous and kind-hearted that you want to personally help your student. In such an instance, what our policy is that you can make a 100% tax-deductible donation to Foster Care to Success. That money will go directly to your student, but it will be an anonymous gift, a one-time only scholarship, or we tell them, because we do have a family fund for emergencies, and we do have a Red Scarf fund for books. So if you would like to help your student, which is so wonderful and above and beyond, and we are very grateful. I please never think that we are pushing you back. If you do this, though, it needs to be done that way, because truly nothing will change your relationship with your student faster than putting money into it. It changes expectations. Some young people, not all of them, but some of them are out to see what I can get. We had a student not long ago, every time she spoke to her coach, she talked about how she didn't have heat in the house, and she talked about how she didn't have food stamps, and she talked about whatever. And in really investigating this further, it was not so true. So does someone have a question? No. Okay. So, and again, we have emergency funds for students. We have the Red Scarf project. They fill out a form and they can get $500 for books. We prefer that they use their other avenues first, because any student who gets ETV funding has enough money for their books. Their ETV coordinator works with them, and they do have the money for that. Same with scholarship students. Every scholarship student gets $500 a semester towards books. So, but we do have the family fund, the Red Scarf project for books, and we have the family fund, which they can ask for a different amount of money if it truly is an emergency. Foster Care to Success will help out with that. So, Peggy, did that answer your question? Hello?
Yes, it certainly does. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
A little bit like my hand was slapped, but I deserved it, so that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I don't mean it at all that way. You are certainly not the only coach who gives money. It's a generous and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It just really, we say this, Peggy, for your protection, because we don't want the student to keep telling you, I need this and I need this and I need this.
I totally understand and appreciate and will be in full compliance.
I feel bad. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no,
So,
don't do that, Tina.
but
You're too easy to make guilty.
yeah, well, I'm a daughter and a mother. What can I
Yeah.
say?
Don't do that to yourself.
And
Question,
yes.
and that is this. I just started doing this. I have one student who is like the dream student. I mean, it's almost like the guy, he's great, he's terrific. If he has issues, I haven't discovered them yet. But he does, when I asked him about his computer, because a couple of things. His computer is 5 years old, and his version of Microsoft Office is like 2003 version. This guy's in college, and I advised him the next earliest possible chance to take software applications, because that's the key to your success in college right now, is if you can use your Excel and Word, you're in good shape in PowerPoint. So anyways, is there a fund where there is enough money to get this guy a computer and decent software?
Well, first of all, Pat, why don't you
I
address that?
Him, by the way, but this is for my own.
That would probably depend on whether or not he was an ETV student or a scholarship student.
He's a scholarship student, I believe.
Okay.
He has pretty good grades. I wouldn't even matter if I said his name, right? Because you wouldn't recognize him. But he has really good grades. I think he's a scholarship student. For money stuff.
Well, as first of all, as an
Yeah, as an ETV student, he might have an option to purchase a laptop through our program, but
What does ETV stand for?
it's Education Training Voucher.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of tricky because we don't offer the laptop unless their tuition and fees have been paid for, and we make sure that they have room and board, their books are done, they're paid for. They have to have all of that done before we could even start discussing the laptop that we offer.
He's okay. Okay, good. And I referred him to Pam, but I just thought, you have got to, it's just like having textbooks. You've got to, I just finished my master's degree a few years ago, and thank God I had an up-to-date computer and up-to-date software, because if you don't, you don't have a chance.
If you referred him to Pam, that means he is a scholarship student. And it's a little bit different in the scholarship program. We have what's called the alternative payment plan, and he could the next semester request money. That it wouldn't be extra money, but his scholarship could go towards a computer. If we have a student who is really in dire need and their computer, we would have to give grave consideration if it was just an old computer, but if his computer crashed, and he really needed a new computer, we would probably be able to.
He would miss a week of school, and he could go from an A student to a B student in a week. Why wait those computer crashes?
Why don't we discuss this later together? My email is Tina R, and we can talk about it.
All right.
Okay, just because we are already 30 minutes on the call, that's all.
Oh, I'm with you. I just was curious about that. I'd be happy to take it offline.
It's basically because we have only so much money and many students.
I understand that.
So,
Okay. Well, later. So.
okay, the next boundary that we have is that the coach and the student cannot visit in person. It's beyond the parameters of the program for liability reasons to protect both the coach and the student. An online relationship is really not the same as an in-person relationship, and it doesn't work for us. And again, that's something I could go into great detail with. If anybody wanted to visit their student, we can always talk about it. But as a rule, as a policy, coach and student cannot visit in person. Again, exceptions can be made and have been made, but it would be a personal thing. Another thing is, the biggest thing is professional advice. When a student needs professional advice. We're going to talk about that later because that's really the big thing that many of you are concerned about. But so now that you know the boundaries that we have in the program, we're going to talk a little bit about the boundaries that you can set for yourself. The first thing is to always remember that the purpose of this program is to move the student forwards in school and towards a career or a profession. That you as a coach are here to encourage the student and to help them make good decisions, to push the student towards their academic advisor, their department head, their tutoring center, always to involve the student in their own campus and their own community, reminding them to utilize resources that they have at hand. You can proofread papers, you can offer academic resources, of which there are many on our website. You can talk about aptitudes and interests, you can talk about career paths, you can help keep the student on track with papers and studying. Those kind of things are really the purpose of the program, is to help the student with academics. We do realize that with a lot of our students, life intervenes in academics, and there are many, other things coming up, which is why you have to set limits. Read the coach handbook, read the webinars, and think about the parameters from the start, although it really is never too late to, to set a boundary if you have to. To establish a boundary, you can say something like, well, say for example, a student is calling and texting all the time and really is, more than you can handle. You can say something like, I don't have my cell phone with me at work, so if you text me during the day, I'm not going to be able to answer until the night. Or you can say, every Wednesday evening I go for a movie, I don't have my phone with me, and set boundaries that way. You can say, I've been answering your texts right away, and but we really need to make a new understanding that I can't answer texts until after 5 o'clock, that kind of a thing. So even if the boundary has not been well established, even later on into your relationship, you can establish a boundary, and you can always call on us on the team for advice on how to answer any question, because it's really pretty simple in the end. If it doesn't feel right to you, if you are uncomfortable about anything, if you feel out of your depth, if it's something that you didn't sign up for, then a boundary is being crossed. So, and you can call us. So, how do you set these boundaries? How do you reestablish boundaries if you felt they're being crossed? Well, the first thing is, as I just said, trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right, and you are not obligated to be in any kind of a relationship that does not feel right to you. You call us and discuss one-on-one, like with this computer. It really, we are here, and sir, I'm really happy to talk to you about that tomorrow. You can call if you can't sleep in the middle of the night. You've all got Pat's cell phone number and my cell phone number. You can call us anytime, and we have been called in the middle of the night many times. You just say no. If a conversation is getting into an area you're uncomfortable, just say no. And again, you can put it on Foster Care to Success. This is something that we really need to involve the program in, especially money. That is again the really big one. You just can say no. Sometimes a student is rude or angry, disrespectful, either in the moment or perpetually. That's another boundary. You do never have to permit disrespectful behavior. You can tell the student, I think you're a little bit upset right now, please calm down, let's talk about this rationally. And if the student does not do that, you can say, we need to have this phone call at a different time. And sometimes a student may start talking about something that triggers a response in you from your own past, from your own experience. For example, and I will use this example, the student may say have an eating disorder and start talking about that, and that is in my family a personal thing. I'm not talking about a coach instance, but what I would say is, I understand where you are coming from. I have had a similar issue to this, but really this is something where you need to find resources. Let me help you find resources so that you can talk about it with the appropriate person. And one of the handouts that we're going to have on the website today is one of our coaches had a question about depression, and Shelley and the team answered it really nicely in an email, and it shows you we have gotten permission to put the exchange on the website, and you'll see how really it can work, where you move things away from yourself and back towards the student and push the student out to the wider community. So let's see. right. If the conversation veers, just say no. And again, as we have said many times, students come from complicated, dysfunctional, painful, unstable, miserable, so many ways to describe it, backgrounds. They are struggling to overcome what happened in the past. They're struggling to create and maintain stable adult lives. Sometimes they have no blueprint to work with, and at the same time as this, they are college students with everything that goes with that. So sometimes things come up that you really just are unable to handle, and what you need to remember is that you are, regardless of what you are in your personal life, you are not a therapist, a doctor, or a lawyer for this student. And so part of the boundaries is always refer them first to us, tell us about it. Always say this, you really need to talk to somebody about this. Let me help you get the resources that you need, is the way to handle it. Your student may be a parent, they may suffer from depression or another emotional disorder. They may, tell you all about it. They may be in an unstable living situation with housing, roommate, family. They may be, as we've said, financially needy. They may work more than one job. And as a coach, you can address all of those issues. You certainly can. We're not saying don't address them. It's simply that if you understand the boundary and you maintain the boundary between what you can do and what would be overwhelming to you or unfair to you or unhelpful to the student or difficult, there's always the boundary in the coaching program of this is what I can do and this is what I cannot do, and put it on us. And see, this is where I was before when I lost my page. I was saying you're providing the kind of compassionate, reasonable, comforting adult support to a younger person. That is really your role, to help them move forward as a friendly, caring, compassionate, empathetic adult, not going beyond that boundary. You always steer the student in the direction of campus or community resources. Whenever you can ask us about those. We have many. We have national resources. Some of those also are on the website. You always contact us. Again, if anything seems to be, it's much better to stop now and say, I don't feel comfortable with this. I think this might be going in a direction. I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm worried about the student. As soon as you feel that, contact us rather than waiting, because there's a lot of people here. One of us is bound to know your student personally, yes, because we work with them all the time. Contact us if you ever are worried about their well-being, their immediate physical well-being. We have policies. Again, if we feel that a student is from what the coach says or what the student said or the coordinator said, we have an absolute set policy that we will call campus security. We will call the police. And in the 13 years that I have been working for Foster Care to Success, we have twice actually saved a life by acting on what is our policy and sending the police to a young person's where they were living. So this is not something, none of these things should be on your shoulders as a coach. That's again why we have the boundaries. If your student is depressed or the money issues, the family issues, we have two staff members who deal only with parenting students. So we really do have the resources as you build these as we build these boundaries. Finally, the one thing that I want to say is that sometimes we have to end a coaching relationship, And it is almost invariably because the student has overtaken, overstepped their boundaries, and is just telling our coaches, I don't know who is on the call, and I don't know whatever, but I have to tell you, guys, that as a group you are so amazing and so compassionate and so wonderful and long suffering and giving. It really is you have gone, many of you, way above and beyond what anybody could ever expect. And there have been instances like that where a student simply overwhelmed the coach, completely overwhelmed the coach, and that really, and there have been other reasons, but that would be the main reason that sometimes, a couple of times, we have ended a coaching relationship. And the decision is always made in consultation with the ASP team, in consultation with the coordinator. The coach is in on it, and we always not only let the student down, very, very gently and compassionately, but that student is always immediately given a foster care to success staff member to work with them closely, regularly, directly, to move them in the right direction. So, and the final thing that I have to say is that because you guys care so much, because it is obvious to your student how much you care, you can say the most difficult things. If there is love in your heart and compassion and caring in your heart, and it comes through your voice, you can say those things, and your student will, if not in the moment, understand in the end. And that really is what I had to say about boundaries. Can we have perhaps a discussion? Do people have questions and comments? Something I didn't say that was really important, or something that you agree or disagree with, or questions? This is the point in the call that I always start feeling silly.
This is Kat Foley. I came in late because of an appointment.
Hi, Kat.
A lot of what you were saying. Hi. And I was just going to tell you, there is actually a word for that when someone triggers something in you, like the example about the eating disorder, that is called countertransference. And those are issues that you either have presently or haven't in your own life. And so it's hard to be a support to someone else in that same issue, whether it's substance abuse or eating disorder or whatever the case may be. So that's just letting you know that there was a word for that.
Well, countertransference. If I ever have to make this speech again, I'll use it.
Right. So that's just what the term is when you're feeling something. And the thing is, we aren't their counselors. Even though I am a mental health therapist, I remind my students students who are majoring in psychology, so that's right in line with what my field is. But I do realize I'm not their counselor. I am your support mechanism academically, and I can be a support system to you socially and all the other ways that we have on our checklist when we do a report. Did you talk about this? Did you talk about finances or grades or social life or work, whatever? I can be a support mechanism in those areas. And again, I refer them to counseling in their area if I feel they need it for an issue or ongoing issue.
Exactly. So same if they had a legal problem. If they had a legal problem, one refers them to
A lawyer.
What did they call it? Count as
Legal aid?
Legal aid.
Legal aid or whatever.
Yeah.
Even if I was an attorney, I would say I'm not your attorney because that's not the capacity that I have agreed to function in.
Right.
Same with me, I'm a mental health therapist, so it is real easy for my students to say, oh, she's a therapist, well, I can just call her. And they can call me, and we can talk about issues, but I want them to understand that this is me being a sounding board. I'm not functioning as your therapist.
nicely explained. So,
You're welcome.
any other questions? Well, we have kept you 48 minutes and 20 seconds on this call. I hope that you all found it useful. We will have materials on the website, and thank you all very, very much for listening in.